part 8 of this stretching series. I'm going to return back to the spine as I did in the first video. Difference being with this one, I'm going to be on my hands and knees. The spine moves in 6 directions: forwards, backwards, sideways, both ways, and twisting both ways. Great idea to keep your spine healthy and flexible and strong by doing these stretches. You see I have 2 mats crisscrossed because I'm going to change my angle depending on what I think is the best angle for viewing. So let's get started. And here's my starting position on hands and knees. I like to spread my fingers because it gives me a wider base and I feel more solid. And I push also into each finger and each knuckle. Starting position, spine is neutral. First one, I curl the spine forwards, spinal flexion. And the second one, I just bring my belly down and come into a backwards curve for the spine. I'll go sideways so you can see a bit better what my spine is doing. So here is the forward part. I can also push from my hands and knees to deepen the stretch. Coming into spinal extension. Okay, so that's the first 2. The second 2 I'll show you is twisting. So starting position, hands under shoulders, knees under hips. I'm going to take one hand, this is my right hand, putting it directly under my face, and I twist at the shoulders, bringing my left hand as high as it will go. Depending on your flexibility, maybe you're here right now as your full range of motion, but doing this more often, you will increase that spinal flexibility. And to include the neck, I would twist my head and look at those fingers at the top. Trying to keep breath nice and steady, easy, relaxed. Fix my shirt. And then change angle. So now my left hand is directly under my face. Equal weight on the knees, twisting at the shoulder, making sure that I'm not moving my hips in any direction. And the best way I know that is if I feel any kind of unequal weight on my knees, I know I've moved my hips. Equal weight on the knees, twist at the shoulder, and look up at those fingers. So that's 4. I'll show you here why I have this towel. It's just to give more cushion for the knee if you're doing this on a harder surface and you don't have enough cushion. You do this on your bed or on a carpeted floor, you might not need the extra cushion. So the last 2 are sideways, and I find this is the most difficult for the first time people do it, because I think they're looking for too much. There's very little movement in this stretch. So the best way to remind yourself that you're doing it correctly, and I have to remind myself consistently, is that I have equal weight in the hands and the knees. Because what I see most often is people do something like this, thinking they're getting a better stretch, but you'll see my hips are way off center, and so is my shoulder. So the movement is very small. Here I am, neutral position, and I bring my left hip towards my left shoulder, and just be aware of how the weight is distributed on your hands and your knees. So I've moved maybe 3 centimeters. Here I go back to neutral, reposition myself, and now my right hip goes towards my right shoulder, and my head is not doing anything. Gaze is straight down, spine and neck is neutral, and then back to center. So you'll probably have to review all those things to make sure that you're getting that spinal curve correctly. The main thing is equal weight in hands and knees. I'm going to show you how to do the sideways while you're lying on the ground, because it's much easier and it's actually also much more relaxing because gravity is not making your muscles work. So here is starting position. Okay, I'm going to lift a little bit to the right. I move my legs to the left. Bring my arms above my head to the left. Here is that curved position of the spine. And also to remember that both hips are on the ground and both shoulders are on the ground. So you can hold that for a while. Bring yourself back to neutral. And now my hips go a few centimeters to the left. My legs come to the right. And my arms above my head to the right. You'll see a nice curve in my body. Really good for the spine. Also stretching the side, ribs, flank, hips. And bring yourself back to neutral. And the last one I'll show you is a twist. I have this block here because it will raise the ground for me as my knee goes to one side. So, neutral position, to the right, left leg straight, right foot on left thigh, just above the knee, and I'll put the block on my knee, and I take some of the weight of my leg into my left arm, and I guide my leg to the ground. You can also use a cushion is to show you might, because the other part of this stretch has the opposite shoulder on the ground. And then I could twist my head to look at my right hand. Okay, so then I would lift up again. You can hold that position, as I've said, for 30 seconds or a minute or longer. Hips back to center. Then I move them a little bit to the left. Take the weight of my leg into my arm as I guide my left knee to the ground. Trying to keep my body straight. Right hand goes on the outside of the left knee. I gently guide my left shoulder to the ground. And my arm is now perpendicular to my body. My head twisted to look at my left hand. And trying to breathe nice and deep into these ribs. A really good stretch for the spine, but also for the internal organs, because they're getting squished and massaged with the position of my body and with the breath. As the lungs fill up, it creates less space for the organs, which forces them to move and get massaged, squished, plunge.